This is the story of a kid named Zack. And when I say kid, I mean a child so thoroughly wrecked by life that the only thing keeping him going was the hope that someday he'd get to return the favor. He was an ugly orphan bullet catcher from day one. His stepfather tried to burn him alive when he was young. Then he got adopted by a pair of cannibals who fed him the bodies of dead children every single day. For years, he was beaten while burying the corpses of his childhood friends. But the moment that broke him, when he saw his brother's skull after the kid was eaten alive, something in his mind finally snapped. Later that night, he watched a movie about a serial killer stalking a couple in the woods before slaughtering them. And just like that, his sanity packed its bags and left. He realized that was exactly what he needed to do. While his disgusting excuse for parents slept, he grabbed a kitchen knife, walked to their room, stood over his father's sleeping body, and stabbed him until he stopped moving. All those years of abuse, all that pain, finally funneled into a single moment. He couldn't help but smile. He had his freedom. He left his prison and started walking aimlessly until a car splashed him with water. The woman got out to apologize, then noticed the bloody knife in his hand. She told him he should go back home. Zack told her he never had a home. The movie scenes flickered in his mind, and he decided to take her life too. Then he climbed into her car and slept. Morning came. A senile old man approached the car, knocking on the window, asking if someone was inside. Zack opened the door, ready to kill. The old man asked if he was camping with his parents. He was blind, he explained. He couldn't see. Zack's stomach growled, and the man realized he was starving. So he took him home and invited him inside. While he ate, the man asked how he got lost in the forest and said he could stay until he found his family. When Zack asked why he was helping, the man admitted he was lonely. He hadn't spoken to anyone in years. That night, an urge deep inside kept Zack awake. He realized his knife was the only way to satisfy it. He started toward the old man's bed, but stopped. Killing him wouldn't be satisfying. So he wandered the city alleys instead. A random loser bumped into him. Zack pulled his knife and stabbed him dead on the spot, but the urge didn't go away. His knife was dull now, useless, just like his life. He went back to the house. The old man smelled blood and asked where he'd been. Zack told him he'd killed a man to satisfy his urges. The old man asked what he wanted to do now, then covered him and told him to sleep in peace. Morning came. The old man left. Night came. He still hadn't returned. On the table, Zack found a letter saying he'd gone out for milk. He couldn't read it, though. He never learned how. Hours passed. He started losing it, convinced he'd been abandoned again. He tore the house apart until he found a knife in the rubble. He wandered through the forest until he found a group of people standing by a police car. The old man's body lay covered beneath it. A disgusting couple nearby was celebrating having killed a poor old man for a few coins. When they saw Zack staring, the man told him to get his ugly face out of their sight. But Zack noticed they looked happy. And all this time, it was happy-looking people who satisfied his urges. He pulled his knife as the man fell to the ground and stabbed him to death. Then he went after his girlfriend. He killed them both that night, but all he could think about was the old man asking what he wanted to do. He answered. He wanted to destroy happy people enjoying their lives and make them fall into despair. He knew he was a monster, but he wished the old man, the only person who ever cared about him, hadn't died. Meanwhile, years later, a young woman named Rachel came home to find her alcoholic father screaming at her for being mentally ill. He beat her mother in front of her. Rachel just laughed hysterically. No matter how many times she begged them to listen, they never did. That night, her mother promised to make her scream. When Rachel tried to ask her to listen, her mother slapped her face and said she was the reason they were trapped in this hell. Rachel begged one more time. Her mother screamed at her to go to her room. Months later, Rachel would reveal in a psychiatric hospital that all she wanted was to care for a sick puppy. But after the puppy passed out, the next thing she remembered was being in her room, fixing it. She'd fixed the poor dog. Then her father screamed at her mother again. As she went downstairs, she heard her mother screaming for her life. She opened the door to see her mother's lifeless body. Her father realized she'd seen everything and said she'd be next. Rachel tried to run. Her father chased her until she locked herself in her room. She told the puppy not to be afraid. Her father broke down the door, saying she was as crazy as he was for how she'd killed the dog and sewed it up, just so it could be hers. He laughed about how insane they all were and said no one would ever miss her. She pulled a gun and pointed it at him. It was her mother's gun. After telling this story to a doctor, he hypnotized her and erased all her memories. She woke up in an isolated hospital, wondering why she was in a completely different place. As she left her room, she heard an elevator open. She stepped inside, and a voice announced that the sacrifice had been selected. She ended up on a floor called the play area. As she walked, trying to find an exit, she heard glass breaking. Someone was following her. She saw blood stains on the floor, a bird lying injured. She said she'd treat it. Then an explosion from the wall killed it. Zack emerged, laughing, delighted that her hopeful face had turned to despair. He gave her 3 seconds to run for her life. Rachel tried to flee. He chased her until she reached an abandoned storage room. She hid. He came in, wondering where she was. He stabbed through boxes with his scythe, nearly hitting her, then realized she was somewhere else. He walked out. Rachel knew she had to escape before he found her. She went back to the bird. The life had left its eyes. She swore she'd fix it, that it would be hers forever. She sewed it up and ran back to the elevator. Zack caught her. He said he wouldn't give her more time. He lunged to strike. She ducked and tried to run. He laughed hysterically and chased her. The elevator opened. She barely closed the gates before he could tear her apart, and the elevator carried her upward. She reached the 2nd floor. She was back in a hospital she recognized. From the dark hallway, she heard a man running toward her. She tried to escape, but he caught her. It was Danny, the doctor who'd been counseling her. She looked at his face, wondering if he was really the same person. Zack had seen how she'd sewn the dead bird. Danny told Rachel he'd been waiting for her and led her to a dark room. He wanted her perfect eyes. He grabbed her hand and dragged her toward an operating room, saying he wanted to take a look at them, that they were as beautiful as his dead mother's eyes. He remembered the day his mother killed herself and said he'd do anything for her eyes. But he needed her to look for something first in the back room. When she went in, she saw hundreds of jars filled with eyeballs. Danny appeared behind her, saying he was looking for the eyes behind her. She handed them to him. He told her not to run away, that she'd regret it. After leaving the room, Rachel realized she needed to find a way out. She spotted a crowbar and tried to open a door. As she did, Danny was right behind her. He said this was his floor, and he'd never let her beautiful eyes escape him. He promised to take her eyes for himself. He started dragging her back to the table, saying he'd gouge them out. She begged him to stop, then gave up, saying she wanted to go back to her parents. Danny promised she'd see them soon. They were waiting for her in hell. At that moment, the memories of her dead family finally returned. But when the doctor tried to get her to respond, she stopped speaking. Seeing the dead expression on her face, he said he'd finally have her eyes for himself. Then a scythe pierced deep into his body. Zack killed him, happy to have ended another happy victim's life. He was ready to kill Rachel, too. He told her to run and fight for her life. He swung the scythe toward her neck but stopped when he realized she wasn't screaming. He asked if she wanted to live. A voice announced that one of the rules had been violated, making Zack the new sacrifice. He realized he had to run. As he left, Rachel's memories came back. She realized she shouldn't be alive. While Zack tried to break open the elevator door, Rachel approached him and said she had a favor to ask. Looking into his eyes, she asked him to kill her. Zack asked if this crazy woman was crazier than him, telling her to stop saying things more disgusting than his burned face. She asked if he'd kill her after she opened the door. He shoved her and told her to get them out first. She went back, found the doctor's body, remembered he said it was his floor, and searched his pockets. Zack kept banging on the door. It opened, and Rachel revealed the key was in the doctor's pockets. Seeing she was smart, Zack promised to fulfill her wish and end her life if she helped him escape, hoping her face would be better by then. Hearing this gave her hope. She promised to do her best. As he started to walk away, he asked her name. She introduced herself as Rachel Gardner. The serial killer introduced himself as Zack. They reached the 3rd floor. She noticed something in the water, but Zack told her to keep walking. Soon they arrived at a cemetery. Rachel looked at a hole, wishing she could be buried already. Zack was startled by her horrendous face and yelled at her to snap out of it. They came to another cemetery. Rachel read an inscription on a stone and realized the gravestones were for all the people who'd been killed. She noticed a separate grave. Her name was on it. Nearby was another grave being prepared for Zack. He thought he could desecrate death and tried to destroy it, but Rachel told him he'd only break his scythe. She found an opening in the wall and told him to try to find the exit. He told her to try fixing her useless face instead. As she was about to go in, she told him not to destroy her grave so she could lie there when he was ready to kill her. Her words made him tremble. She walked through the hallway, found the door locked at the end, but noticed a letter. Whoever wrote it had prepared the grave for her. Meanwhile, Zack was lost trying to find an exit. Her grave made him uneasy. He spotted a pickaxe and decided to destroy it. He broke the border, then started destroying the rest of the gravestones. By chance, a stone fell on a switch and unlocked the door in the hallway. Rachel opened it, wondering if the clueless idiot had discovered that intentionally on his own. She walked into a new hallway, reached a room, and heard a mysterious voice. She found a record, a log of everyone killed in the building. She found her own entry but wasn't bothered. Zack kept destroying graves until only Rachel's remained. The memory of her stern warning made him afraid, so he threw away the pickaxe. At that moment, she appeared before him. She saw the destruction and showed him his own document, reading about an Isaac Foster placed in an illegal orphanage that abused him until his parents died. Before she could continue, Zack asked how she felt reading that. He revealed his real name was Isaac Foster and asked if she was afraid of him. When she said she wasn't, he told her another girl had said the same thing. In a dark alley one night, he'd caught up to a girl and asked if she was afraid of him. She said she was actually his fan, and it was an honor to meet him. She tried to touch him, calling him handsome. He grabbed her head and threw her down, asking what the hell she was talking about. He gave her 5 seconds to run. When he caught her again, he asked why she ran if she wasn't scared. She said anyone would be scared to die and cried for someone to save her. Zack said he hated lies and ended her life. Rachel wondered what that depressing story had to do with her and said she'd run if it meant he'd kill her. Zack realized this girl was insane, so he decided to destroy her grave, telling her she wouldn't die here. She was sad she still wouldn't die. To make her feel better, he said he'd kill her once they were safe outside this building. He went back to the elevator but couldn't open it. Rachel told him to look in the water, hoping he'd find a switch. Desperate to leave, Zack searched in the water. Rachel thought he didn't really intend to kill her. When he asked why she didn't just do it herself, she said it was a terrible sin, and because God said so, it must be true. Hearing that, Zack told her to show some emotion. It would motivate him to end her life. When she couldn't even pretend to be scared, he realized she was already dead inside. He stepped on a switch. A door opened in the hallway. Rachel went to see what was inside. She found a letter and a flower, wondering who put them there. Zack got tired of waiting in the water. The lights went out, and a mysterious child appeared before him. The child asked why he'd destroyed the graves. thinking his own grave was a perfect fit for him. Zack was scared by the idea and tried to attack, but the child jumped away. He introduced himself as Eddie, dodged the scythe again, and said he'd fallen in love with Rachel. He planned to make the perfect grave for her because she was his missing piece. Zack told him the only thing missing was his useless brain. Eddie was sure she was perfect for him and said he'd kill her. Enraged, Zack tried to attack, but Eddie vanished into the darkness. Rachel discovered the last door was unlocked. She used a lantern and found another letter inside. Eddie appeared behind her, saying he'd come to fulfill her wish to die and would be happy to send her to another world, since Zack was too weak and useless to do the job. Zack started calling for Rachel, worried the strange kid might convince her to abandon him. He decided to find another way. Rachel backed toward the wall. Eddie kept trying to convince her, but she told him she'd already promised herself to Zack. Zack reached the opposite side of the wall. Eddie told her to choose one last time who she wanted to end her life. When she nearly chose him, Zack pounded on the wall and shouted that he was the only one who could kill her, swearing by God that he would. She asked if he really swore by God. He said yes, and that she needed to stay alive until then. She begged him to break through the wall. With one strike, he did. Eddie was gone. Zack yelled at Rachel to be useful if she wanted to die. She asked if he really meant those words. She told him he'd sworn by God, repeating the words over and over, asking him to swear again. He pushed her, saying he truly hated nothing more than lies. They needed to find Eddie first. Rachel said he was in the hallway. They went to the end, where Eddie was waiting. He asked how he could persuade her, then lunged with his shovel. Zack blocked and Eddie jumped back. Unwilling to accept defeat, Eddie attacked again but retreated in time. The lights went out and he vanished into darkness, striking Zack while disappearing. Desperate, Zack told Rachel to find the light switch. She hurried. Eddie dodged another attack and retreated into darkness. Rachel hid behind a gravestone and noticed a beautiful grave already prepared for her. Eddie appeared, saying he'd give her a proper burial once she agreed to die. He raised his shovel to end her. She fell into the hole, and he thought he could finally kill her. She lit him with her lantern and shoved him against the gravestone, grabbing his remote and turning the lights back on. Zack tore off his ugly mask and sent him to Nirvana. As Eddie tried to say the grave would have been perfect for Rachel, Zack pushed the gravestone onto his body, burying him forever. With that creep finally gone, Zack wondered how to find an elevator. Rachel pressed a button on the remote. They realized it was behind the waterfall. They entered and ascended to another floor. The elevator opened to an unfamiliar place. The gate was locked. Rachel thought the building was empty. Zack said it was their only way out and tried to break it, but it was solid. An alarm went off. Zack saved her as a machine gun fired. When the bullets ran out, a voice on the speaker announced that a scary, useless girl had been waiting for their arrival. She was the judge of this floor and would punish them for their sins. The gate opened. They reached a locked door. The girl ordered them to take ID photos like any other useless criminals. When they finished, they saw an exit, but entered a dark room with ugly, scary drawings on the walls. The girl announced that each drawing represented their punishment. Hoping to find an exit, Zack checked another room, which was full of ugly, scary puppets. He told Rachel to find a way out. As he grew impatient, he noticed a wooden chair and sat on it like it was his throne. Rachel tried to warn him it was an electric chair. The lights went out, and Zack realized he was trapped. A TV appeared before them. The useless, scary girl welcomed them to her floor. Her name was Kathy. She stepped on a button, electrocuting Zack, nearly frying his useless brain, then turned it off. Rachel wondered if he was already dead. He started threatening to kill the crazy woman once freed. Kathy said he'd only be freed if Rachel figured out how to stop the electrocution. The puppets came to life. Zack realized he was about to lose his useless brain and begged Rachel to find a solution. She studied the puppets, thinking they were there for a reason. She grabbed his scythe and started cutting them down one by one until the electrocution stopped. Zack was unconscious. She wondered if he was still alive. He yelled at her for taking so long, he'd almost lost his brain. Kathy appeared on the TV, but Zack smashed her useless face. They still heard her voice through the speaker as she opened the exit. They reached a warning. Rachel tried to tell Zack the next room would be worse, but his fried brain thought he was invincible. So he went in anyway. The door sealed him inside. He thought the room was just useless junk. Kathy appeared on their TV, explaining the next challenge. They had to solve the puzzle before being killed by toxic gas. An alarm sounded and gas filled the room. To keep Rachel alive, Zack tried to put an oxygen mask on her, saying her useless life depended on her survival. But she didn't care about her own life and told him to save himself first. She noticed a corpse and thought it must be a clue. Zack kicked it. She saw writing on the floor and wondered what it meant. The gas was making her sick. Zack put the mask on her, telling her to stay alive at any cost. She told him to put his foot on a scale, hoping they could solve the puzzle by balancing weight. When she did, the exit still didn't open. She searched for more clues, took off the mask, but the gas weakened her. She thought she was about to die. Zack held her before she passed out, put the mask back on, and told her they had to survive. His words inspired her. She looked for new clues and noticed an opening in the ceiling. Zack threw her up. Inside, she found a key card. Zack saw she was too sick to use it, so he tried to put it in the machine. His idiot brain couldn't figure it out, and he bent the card. Kathy announced his time was up and increased the gas. Determined to survive, Rachel realized she could make a bomb using gas and batteries. She made it, then passed out. The bomb exploded, destroying the room. They survived the blast, but Rachel collapsed again from the gas. She managed to stand, and they headed to the next challenge. Zack saw she was struggling and let her rest. Hours later, they walked toward the next room. Kathy used the speaker again, saying it was admirable how they used each other to satisfy their desires. She wondered which one was the real tool. Zack asked what she meant. She said he'd find out soon. They reached a cell with a dollhouse. Kathy said they could only leave if one of them solved the puzzle. Since Zack was too stupid to do anything, Rachel decided to solve it, hoping he'd rearrange the dollhouse instead. A drawer opened with a math problem. She solved it and realized the numbers referred to a page and phrases in a book. After deciphering the code, she told Zack to put the man doll in the living room. Another drawer opened. She told him to put the woman doll next to it. When he grabbed a bandaged doll that looked exactly like him, he realized this challenge was made to make him relive his past. Memories started haunting him. Rage grew. He tried to destroy the dollhouse. Kathy told him he'd be trapped in the cell forever, so he spared it. But it got worse. The doll reminded him of eating the dead children, of being constantly abused by his useless foster parents. Kathy reminded him he'd been nothing but a useless tool his whole life, and even now, Rachel was using him to help them escape. With all those memories flooding back, he destroyed the entire setup. Kathy revealed they'd already passed the challenge. The gate sealed, separating them into two different cells. Rachel wondered if the dollhouse was making him lose his mind. Kathy appeared, saying they'd only be freed if they took an injection from a syringe. One needle contained fatal poison. Zack wondered which would survive. Kathy left. Rachel wanted to take both injections since she wanted to die anyway. Zack knew he'd be screwed if she died and told her to stay alive until he was dead. Before she could react, he grabbed her needle and injected both into his body. The door opened. He started to leave, but Rachel worried he'd lose consciousness soon. Soon, Zack was exhausted, memories of his past flashing through his mind. Rachel appeared before him. He raised his scythe to end her, but she didn't flinch. She remembered she'd agreed to help him escape so he'd fulfill his promise to send her to the afterlife. Afraid of being trapped forever, Zack decided to free her and told her to stay alive until he killed her, saying he hated nothing more than liars before pushing her. The drugs started making him lose his mind. Rachel ran, hoping to save him by staying alive. She entered another room, a dead end. Zack kept coming, ready to take her life. Realizing she had nowhere to run, Rachel surrendered. But when Zack raised his scythe, a bullet pierced his arm. Rachel saw guns pointed at them. Kathy appeared, saying they were in the firing room and could easily end their useless lives with her remote. Zack managed to stand, tried to break the glass, but a bullet shot through his leg. Rachel tried to help, but he yelled at her to stay away, afraid of losing his mind again. Kathy revealed a gun on the floor and told Rachel to kill Zack before he killed her. Rachel picked up the gun. Zack told her to end him, but she refused. They wouldn't become puppets for that woman. It was their choice to kill or be killed. They weren't tools to be used. Hearing those words, Zack couldn't hold back. He asked her to smile for him. She faked a smile. His mind started to break. He knew it was fake, but the idea of seeing her real smile would make him the happiest man alive. Just imagining killing her while she smiled made him grin more than anyone. He decided to kill her to destroy his own happiness. Furious, Kathy entered the room and called them a pair of ugly, useless trash who deserved to be judged as sinners. Rachel tried to say they weren't her puppets. Kathy slapped her face, saying Isaac deserved to suffer before he died, and called Rachel a useless failure for refusing to kill him herself. Ready to end her, she aimed the guns. Zack regained consciousness. The ugly woman decided to step on his wound, hoping to torture his useless body before finally killing him. Rachel aimed her gun and threatened to end her life instantly. Kathy said it wasn't loaded and used one of her guns to shoot it away. When she turned back to Zack, Rachel pulled another gun from her bag and shot her. Even so, Kathy survived and thought Rachel had become a perfect criminal ready for judgment. Zack cut off her arm, saying her disgusting face deserved to be condemned. He killed her instantly. Still, she crawled toward the remote, determined to kill them, but her guns fired in the wrong direction until they ran out of ammo. As she entered Nirvana, Zack revealed the drugs were wearing off, and he'd regained his senses. They reached the control room. Rachel found Kathy had been controlling the entire floor and opened the door with the controls. They found writing on the wall, and Rachel thought it might be a clue to the elevator. They went down another hallway and realized it was the same place they'd passed when they first arrived. Rachel suggested trying the ID photo room. Inside, Zack wondered how to open the elevator. Rachel noticed a mark and remembered the writing on the wall. She thought it must be a clue and used Zack's nameplate. The elevator opened. As they ascended, Zack asked how she ended up in this useless building. Rachel said she'd been taken to a hospital for counseling after witnessing a murder and had no idea how she ended up there. Zack asked how she found her weapon. She said it had always been with her. The elevator stopped. Zack passed out. She realized he'd lost a lot of blood and dragged him out. When he regained consciousness, she noticed his wound and knew he'd die without treatment. He passed out again. She went to find first aid. Entering a dark room, she hurried toward the end. Candles lit up. She was in an empty chapel. Purple smoke surrounded her, then dissipated. Just an illusion. She entered another dark room, still feeling the smoke. A scary white-eyed man appeared behind her, demanding to know who she was. He introduced himself as Gray, the priest of this church. He said this was actually his floor. Rachel thought he might be another unbalanced threat and tried to back away, but he said he hadn't judged her yet and couldn't pass judgment. He asked why she was there. She said she was trying to save her friend. He revealed first aid supplies could only be found on Danny's floor. She asked how to get there. Gray offered to take her, but said she must first pass a series of tests to discover who she really was. Time was running out, so Rachel went back to Zack, hoping he was still alive. She propped him against the wall and told him about the mysterious priest. Zack tried to follow, afraid the man was a threat but couldn't even lift his scythe. Rachel told him he'd die soon at this rate and asked him to rest while she promised to save him. Realizing he'd just be dead weight anyway, Zack agreed. Rachel returned to the ugly, white-eyed priest and said she was willing to take the test, but asked him to spare Isaac's useless life. Minutes later, they descended in the elevator. Purple smoke enveloped them. Rachel realized it was coming from the priest, but they soon arrived at Kathy's floor. Rachel wondered why they weren't on Danny's floor. Gray said she would be tested on all the previous floors she'd passed through, and her only task there was to turn on the electricity powering the elevator. He released purple smoke throughout the floor. Rachel hurried out. She spotted the switch. A zombie fell before her, then more appeared. She ran as they stumbled over each other, but more kept coming. She shot one and hid in a room. The zombies forced their way in. She escaped to another room and noticed Kathy's body was gone. She ran to the controls, activated the guns, and started shooting, realizing time was running out. When she finished, Kathy's ghost appeared behind her, calling her an ugly, useless murderer who only cared about herself, saying she was worse than Isaac, the world's biggest sinner. Rachel wasn't shaken and watched her disappear. She returned to the cell, turned on the electricity, and went to the elevator. It was open. Gray asked what enemies she'd encountered. She said she'd annihilated them, and they were irrelevant. Seeing she felt no guilt for killing the nearly dead prisoners, Gray took her to Eddie's floor. He told her to find the electricity switch in the control room. Rachel was tired of his useless tests, thinking they were a waste of time. Gray said the tests were to reveal who she really was, because she was considered an irregular child. She noticed Eddie's body was gone. Gray quickly pulled her away. They reached the destroyed cemetery. Gray said the souls of the buried bodies could never move on to the afterlife since their graves had been destroyed. As she tried to leave, a ghost hand grabbed her ankle. She kicked it away. More hands emerged from the ground. She stomped them one by one until they were all destroyed. She found the switch in a cabinet, turned it on, and the elevator opened. Eddie's ghost appeared, asking if her cold, ugly heart felt no emotion for the hands she destroyed. She ignored his horrible face, realizing it must be an illusion, and ran back to Gray, hoping to save Zack before it was too late. He asked what enemies she'd faced. She said they were ugly, useless hands she'd destroyed without a trace of emotion. Hearing this, Gray thought her soul must be lost, but took her to Danny's floor. He said he'd wait at the next elevator, but she needed to find a way to heal Zack's wounds first. She entered the examination room and found Danny's body was also gone. He must be alive. She searched for first aid supplies, but all the cabinets were empty. She checked other rooms, all deserted. She ran to the elevator. Reaching it, she wondered if Gray was trying to delay her until Isaac died. He said he was as clueless as her useless face and claimed she was responsible for Isaac's wound. Seeing his words meant nothing to her, he suggested they go to Zack's floor, where they might find some bandages. With nothing left to lose, Rachel agreed. They descended to the lower floors. Meanwhile, Danny appeared before Zack, seeing this as his only chance to kill him. But at the last moment, Zack regained consciousness and was ready to kill him instead. Danny asked how he'd survived. He revealed he'd been wearing a protective vest when stabbed and had stitched up his own wound. Angered by his useless face, Zack tried to kill him, but his injury stopped him. Danny said the only thing that mattered was finding Rachel's beautiful eyes, but Zack said he'd already killed her. Danny's mind began to crumble as he said he intended to add her eyes to his collection. Zack realized this guy might be the biggest pervert of them all, and revealed he'd be the one to end her life. Danny realized Zack had made a mistake. Rachel was still alive. He told Zack to tear out her eyes in exchange for treatment. Zack would never break the promise they'd made to each other. Danny left. Zack collapsed from exhaustion. Rachel and Gray reached Zack's floor. She ran to where she'd first seen him, hoping to find the knife he'd asked her to retrieve. She entered his disgusting room, worse than a slum, but found a new bandage and the knife. She went back to Gray and they took the elevator back to the upper floors. When she reached where she'd left him, he was gone. She thought Gray must have come back to kidnap him. He told her she was nothing but a curse to everyone and revealed Danny was still alive. Realizing Isaac was in danger, she tried to find him. Gray said he'd finally discovered who she really was and was ready to judge her sins. She was completely hopeless, and her desire to save Zack was selfish. She only hoped to be killed by him. Rachel tried to say she truly wanted to save him. Gray released purple smoke around her. A giant serpent appeared before her eyes. She ran before it could devour her. Hiding in a room, the serpent broke through the door. She saw Zack before her. Afraid he'd be killed, she tried to pull him to safety, but he pushed her. The illusion broke. Zack thought she might have lost her mind, but sat down as his wound worsened. Seeing his weak, useless body made Rachel sad. She told him she couldn't find any first aid supplies on Danny's floor. Zack told her the useless idiot was still alive. She gave him his knife. Zack was happy to finally have a weapon he could wield. He noticed the scared look on her face, tried to say he was a monster and would survive no matter what. He managed to stand. She suggested following the blood trail, hoping it would lead them to Danny. She found a torn painting. The serpent tried to devour her. Zack saved her and told her to find the exit immediately. While Zack fought the snake, Rachel found the secret door, but the snake retreated into the wall. It appeared before her, and Zack cut it down as his wound worsened. Minutes later, they tried to find another exit. Zack collapsed, having lost the rest of his strength. Rachel said she'd find Danny alone. Zack thought it was too dangerous, checked her gun, and found it empty. Frustrated, he asked why she was willing to risk her life to save him. She said the only thing she cared about was the vow he'd made to God. Zack had heard enough of her nonsense. He told her there was no God in their world. That destroyed her. She asked where her soul would go when she died. Zack yelled at her to smile anyway. She did, and he lay down from exhaustion. Rachel realized he was losing all his blood. She thought it was only a matter of time before he entered nirvana, but he gave her his knife and told her to protect herself. She ran to find Danny. Entering a new hallway, she saw another blood trail. Following it, purple smoke rose from a candle, and the trail began to disappear. She ran through the mist and fell into a large hole. She woke up in a grave. Eddie's ghost appeared. She told him to take his ugly face away. He decided to bury her anyway. She stabbed the gravestone and was instantly teleported to Kathy's torture chamber. Wondering how she was teleporting, mist enveloped her again, and Kathy's ghost electrocuted her in the chair. In a flash, she teleported to a new room, Kathy's horrendous face reflected in a mirror. Mist teleported her to the church. The illusion was starting to make her lose her mind. She saw Gray and demanded to know where Danny was hiding. He said he had no idea but had obtained some medication for Zack. Hearing this, Rachel realized she could save Zack after all and tried to get the medicine. When she found he had no intention of giving it, she threatened to cut his useless face with a knife. He said she deserved worse pain, blaming her for causing Isaac's wound. He called her a witch, saying she'd tricked the angels who were supposed to punish her for being a sinner. To judge her sins, Gray teleported her to a courtroom and declared the trial had begun. He called witnesses. Kathy appeared. Rachel wondered how her disgusting body had survived. Kathy showed how Rachel had commanded Zack during their puzzle, using him as nothing but a tool. She said she was the judge who'd been shot by her own criminal. Everyone noticed Kathy had been laughing when she died. Kathy said that was the worst crime. Rachel's criminal nature had made her the happiest woman in the world. Gray asked how she wanted to punish her. Kathy sentenced Rachel to water torture. A water tornado surrounded her. Kathy tried to tell her to beg for her hopeless life. Gray yelled at her to stop, saying it wasn't her place to apply punishment. Gray gave the floor to Eddie. He said Rachel was exactly the same as him. She'd buried the bird the same way he wanted to bury her. But since she'd never shared his feelings, he began strangling her, asking why she chose Zack over him. Because of how she'd buried him, he rose believing she was a witch and said she should be impaled to death. Even as she was ready to give her life, Gray yelled for the stakes to disappear. Danny's turn came. Rachel asked where the medicine was. Gray told him to continue his testimony. Danny thought she had the most beautiful eyes, but because her heart was different from others, he screamed that her soul could never be saved. Gray silenced him and said Rachel was a witch with the power to enchant them all. He declared she would be burned alive. Flames surrounded her. Hoping to save herself, Rachel tried to say she was innocent. Gray called her an ugly liar. He said all the other psychos were actually angels and called Rachel the devil for ending their lives. He ordered her to confess she was an ugly witch. She refused, saying she couldn't be a witch since there were no witches in her Bible. Gray revealed he was actually God and said only he could judge her sins and send her straight to hell. He claimed the real God never existed. She thought he was just making that up so she'd give her life willingly. Her determination strengthened. She teleported to her inner world and saw a god like Zack before her. In an instant, he cut the illusion and started running with her. She regained consciousness, realizing Isaac's knife had broken the illusion. Gray asked how she discovered everything was fake. She said his knife had revealed the truth and called him her new god. She'd promised to offer herself to Zack, and that promise was her god. Gray said she was the world's worst sinner. She said none of that mattered and told him to hand over the medication before she killed him too. He led her to an inner room and revealed the medicine would help Zack recover. Without hesitation, she selected the right items and told him to die already. She went back to Zack, found him still alive, and treated his wound. When he woke, she offered to stitch him up. He asked why she was still scary and why she was willing to stitch his disgusting wound. She said he was her new god. He thought she couldn't be scarier. When she finished, she collapsed from exhaustion. She woke up and decided to take Zack to the church, hoping to find the elevator. Gray was gone. They found the elevator and used it to go up. Inside, Rachel asked how Zack had gotten his burns, saying she wanted to know everything about her god. He told her about his past. As a child, his useless, disturbed stepfather tried to burn him alive, but he managed to hold on so they burned together. His mother arrived and kicked him out, leading to his years in an orphanage. She asked if he still intended to leave this useless building. He said yes, and that he would never lie, no matter what. She remembered an old memory and tried to confess the truth, afraid he'd hate her when he found out. She decided to keep it from him. The elevator opened onto another floor. Rachel thought it was best to keep her secret forever. Zack noticed blood on the floor. She realized this floor was exactly like her home and knew all her secrets were about to be revealed. Zack entered the apartment and wondered why she looked like she'd seen a ghost. He saw a pair of dolls. Rachel screamed for him to stay away, saying the place might be full of traps. Zack didn't care and told her to fix her ugly face. He noticed the dolls were stitched and wondered if it was some haunted house thing. Rachel begged him to kill her already. He thought she was losing her mind and said he'd only kill her when they got out of the building. As she tried to persuade him, she realized he'd already made up his mind and passed out from fever. Hearing a strange noise, Zack decided to check inside a room. He found an ugly, disgusting, stuffed monkey. He approached the elevator. Danny revealed himself and locked him inside. Desperate to escape, Zack tried to break down the door but realized it was useless. Danny told him to search the apartment and find out who Rachel really was. Knowing it was the only way out, Zack searched. He entered a room with a portrait of a couple. The ceiling collapsed, but he escaped. Darts were fired at him. He deflected them and destroyed the opening. He reached the dining room, kicked the table aside, and noticed the basement was locked. He went to the bathroom, saw the bathtub full of water, thought the key was inside. He reached for it. Toy fish bit his hand. He brushed them off, wondering what strange crap was happening. He went down to the basement. Approaching a new door, he nearly fell into a trap but grabbed his scythe. Rachel woke up and saw Danny's ugly face. She asked for Zack. Danny said he'd sent him to search the apartment for her secret. Desperate to find him, she tried to go in, but Danny blocked her way and told her to wait until he came back. Zack was hanging for his life. Gray caught him, saying he wasn't allowed to die yet, and pulled him out. Gray revealed he'd created the building as an experiment and said even the angels were just lab rats. He thought Zack was a special tool and had decided to make him an angel, since his idiot brain could only think of killing. Zack had decided to escape by sacrificing himself. He was trying to escape with Rachel. Gray wondered how an ugly, useless idiot like him had become attached to her. The memory of her emotionless eyes passed through his mind. Gray revealed they'd been his special lab rats, but told him to use a special ID card to open the locked door in the apartment. Having seen enough of his horrendous face, Zack entered the inner room. Rachel watched him on TV. He saw a new portrait of Rachel and her family. Danny told Rachel that Zack would kill her once he discovered her secrets. That realization terrified her. She thought he'd hate her forever. Zack opened a box and found Rachel's ID card inside. Noticing the same writing on the portrait, he went to the locked door. Rachel escaped and ran through the apartment, hoping to reach him in time. Zack fixed the ID card. Rachel realized it was too late. He looked at the room, thinking it must have belonged to Rachel. The TV turned on. Zack heard a news report about the murder of Rachel's parents. They'd found the sewn-together bodies. Zack remembered Rachel had stitched his wound like a professional. The realization scared him. He wondered if she'd killed her own parents. Rachel appeared on screen. Danny was interrogating her. He asked why she'd killed and sewn up her parents. She said she wanted to keep them together as a family. After they were both dead, she promised to fix them. She'd sewn their bodies together, stitching her mother's mouth to make her smile so they could become the perfect parents. She was happy to live in peace with them forever. Hearing her confession, Danny thought they were exactly alike and revealed she had the same eyes as his mother before she killed herself. Zack had seen enough and smashed the TV. He realized Rachel's sadness was worse and wondered if this floor belonged to her. Danny fired a gun to silence him. Zack wasn't shaken. He asked if Rachel intended to kill him for discovering her secrets. Danny said Rachel was an angel like them, that she'd killed several sacrifices before having a mental breakdown. He thought her Bible was responsible. She told him the Bible reminded her she was a sinner, and she thought she could only find peace when dead. Determined to keep her alive, Danny told Zack to abandon her. Zack asked if everything she'd said was a lie. Afraid to reveal the truth, she asked if he'd still be her God. He said he could never become her God. She realized she was about to lose him, aimed her gun, and fired, grazing his shoulder. She hurried away. He followed, trying to calm her. He found water overflowing in the bathtub, noticed the light switch, and was electrocuted. Rachel stayed emotionless, revealing her lighter. He was scared of fire. He noticed exposed gas. She threw the lighter, causing an explosion, and escaped to another room. Zack dodged a metal ball, broke down the door, and asked how long she intended to run, like they were playing hide and seek. She threatened to kill him. He raised his scythe. She said her life was already useless and he'd become her god when he agreed to kill her. She shot the window. Zack saw she'd disappeared. When he found her again, he asked why she was running. Danny threatened to shoot his ugly, empty head. Rachel aimed her gun at Zack and fired, hitting Danny. She told him he was a useless nuisance, and she intended to kill Zack herself. She was sick of his horrendous face and said she could never be with him because he smelled worse than a sewer. Danny's soul left his body. Zack asked if Rachel knew what she was doing. She said yes, but aimed the gun at him, saying she still had her wish to die. None of it made sense to Zack. He told her to shoot. She tried to pull the trigger. He knocked her down, stepped on her hand as the gun rolled away. He raised his scythe. She screamed for him to stop and said she no longer wanted to be killed by him because he'd renounced being her god. Zack said he was never her god, just the reaper who would send her straight to the afterlife. He told her to make her own decisions without relying on a god. God was irrelevant to their promises. She realized Isaac wasn't God after all. He said it didn't matter who God was. What mattered was the trust and words they shared. He asked her to swear her life to him, and he'd swear his life to her in return. His words made her cry. She agreed to the vow. Hours later, he asked how to find the exit. She said she had no idea. She'd never tried to escape the building. Desperate to leave, Zack hacked the door and they entered a back room. It was a dead end. Rachel said the exit was on the lower floors, since no one ever used the elevator above her floor. They went to the elevator and found the power was off. She said she could turn it back on in the basement. Hoping this would be her last time on this floor, she decided to go down alone, thinking she could say goodbye to her haunted past. She entered the room and found Gray already there. Afraid he might kill her, she looked for her gun but found it missing. Gray said he had no intention of killing her. He only wanted to ask her one question. He wondered if she no longer considered him her god. She said no, but she and Zack had sworn a vow to each other, and that vow was more important than who was her god. She said she had no desire to live and had accepted who she truly was. For the final question, he asked who she was. She said she was the same person she'd always been, Rachel Gardner, a person who killed her own family and was never punished. She wasn't a tool for anyone. Gray thought she was still mysterious, wondering how she'd lived neither as an angel nor as a witch. She said that never mattered from the start. She turned on the power. Before leaving, she asked where the exit was. Gray told her to examine the stained glass inside the cathedral. As she was about to leave, she took one last look at the room, hoping never to return to the darkness within. She went back to Zack and said she'd found the exit, but first wanted to find her gun. She returned to where Danny had been, but his scary body had somehow survived and vanished. Her gun was destroyed. Zack thought Danny might be spying from a corner, but they went to the elevator. Sensing a threat inside, Zack pushed her aside. He noticed body paint on the floor. They reached the lower floor. Zack wondered where Danny was hiding, afraid he'd attack when they let their guard down. They reached the stained glass, managed to push the organ aside. Inspecting the glass, they realized it might really lead to the exit. Zack destroyed it with one strike, revealing a long staircase. Wondering if it was a trap, he asked if it really led outside. Rachel said Gray could never lie. He was a priest. As they climbed, Rachel remembered she'd been blindfolded when first brought in and said the steps would definitely take them to the surface. She grew dizzy and nearly fell. Zack handed her his knife for protection, saying a dull, worn blade might not be useful but was better than nothing. She thanked him. Then the building's emergency detonation activated. Their hopes of escaping were about to be ruined. Fire erupted from the lower floors. The building was about to collapse. They ran up the stairs. At a gate, a rock nearly crushed Rachel. Zack saved her. Desperate to escape, he beat the bars but realized it was useless. Fire surrounded him. The sight of flames brought back his traumatic memories as he started losing breath. Rachel noticed and beat the bars, hoping to bend them. He asked what she was doing and told her to get away. For the first time in his life, he regained control of his emotions. He looked at the bars, remembered the man who burned him alive, and destroyed everything in his way. Apologizing for yelling, he told her to start running with him again. Facing more rubble, Zack destroyed it all with his scythe, happy they were getting closer to the exit. A massive rock blocked their path. Zack called her by a nickname, Ray, and asked if she'd allow him to break it. She felt it and told him to break it. He charged, striking with his scythe, breaking both the rock and the scythe at the same time. He told her to go on. She said goodbye to his scythe. They kept running. They finally reached the door, but Zack saw Rachel wasn't willing to leave. When he asked why, she said she still wanted to die but asked him to want her in death. Her only wish was to be wanted. That was the only way not to feel alone. Zack reminded her he'd given her his knife, that he'd never given anything to anyone in his life, and reminded her he hated telling lies. Danny revealed himself, saying he'd activated the emergency system. They'd all be dead soon. He shot Zack to weaken him and said he was there to ruin their vow. He wouldn't let him rescue her. He'd rather kill her to make him a liar. With her last breath, Rachel apologized for not keeping their vow. Zack said he hated lies. Danny shot him again. Zack kept begging Ray to wake up, saying he didn't want to become a liar. Danny found it amusing to see a helpless monster. Rachel began to say Isaac wasn't a monster, nor a tool, nor even God. He was just a human. She repeated he was a human and forgave him for failing her. Danny raged, asking why she wouldn't accept him as her God when he'd never given her anything. She said she never wanted to receive anything. All her life, she'd only wanted to be wanted for a moment and to be wanted even in death. When she made that promise with Zack, walking toward the surface with him, she realized that was everything she'd ever wanted. Zack asked how she could be happy if their promise had been taken away. She said he hadn't taken it. It didn't matter if a vow was fulfilled or not, because it was made between the two of them. She began to cry, promising to take their vow with her. She told him not to call himself a liar. It was okay if their promise couldn't be kept. Hearing this, Danny realized his plan wasn't working. He cried because no one wanted him. He decided to shoot her again. Zack looked at her lifeless body and tried to call her. Flames surrounded him. Danny was ready to kill him. Before he could fire, Gray shot an arrow into his body, telling him to rest in peace. Danny pulled the arrow and tried to shoot Zack again. Gray shot another arrow and told Zack to escape with Rachel, saying there was still a chance she could be saved if he escaped now. Zack carried her toward the exit. Danny prepared to shoot again. Gray shot another arrow, letting him escape. With Zack gone, Danny wondered if killing Rachel had been a terrible decision after all. He revealed his desire was to eliminate anyone who violated the building's rules. He thought it was his duty to punish them for their sins and told Gray that Isaac was the worst sinner. Gray said Zack was a special tool but had lost the wings that made him an angel. Zack's original desire was to kill everyone with his scythe, but he changed when he started using his scythe to save someone, losing his angel status. That was why his blade broke. The one who showed him this was Rachel. Gray realized she wasn't the witch he thought she was. He said Danny was the devil because he was the one who tried to steal Isaac's humanity and force them all to become angels of death. To atone for his own sins, Gray decided to let them go. His experiments were over, and his role as God had ended. Danny asked where this was going. Gray revealed Danny had been trying to become Rachel's God all along. He wanted to give her a soul instead of stealing hers, but told him he was never a god and could never become one. Danny said that was all he could have dreamed of. When he saw her lifeless eyes, he wanted to love them for eternity, and she was the only thing that gave his life meaning. Hearing his confession, Gray realized Danny was offering his love, hoping it would be returned. He gave the news to the director, saying after all, they were all mere humans. In fact, all of them were humans, and it's humans who create God, just as they create angels and people. It was the same people who destroyed all this and created evil and demons. Danny asked what Gray had learned from all this. Gray said he'd learned nothing. He'd always known humans were ugly, blind in their devotion, yet still so beautiful. He felt the same about Danny and apologized for only realizing it now. The windows exploded, the ceiling collapsed. Danny thought he saw his mother in his final moments. Zack headed toward the exit, hoping Rachel would survive. He kicked the door open, saw people across the street, and begged her to wake up, nearly crying when her eyes wouldn't open. Police arrived and yelled at him to let her go, thinking he was a criminal taking a girl away. Knowing he couldn't escape, Zack tried to remind Rachel of their promise and said he'd come back for her. He surrendered, walking toward the police until they pinned him down like a drunk criminal. That night, 2 birds flew freely. Weeks later, newspapers were full of mystery about the experimentation facility. Detectives investigated the scene. News stations uncovered Rachel's family history as she went through therapy in a special facility. A detective revealed Isaac had admitted to all his crimes, saying he never lies. When asked if he knew the girl, the detective said Isaac claimed he never knew her. What they didn't know was that this was the first time he'd ever lied. Another news anchor interviewed Rachel's psychiatrist. The doctor revealed that Rachel asked about the killer every day. The doctor thought it best to keep her from the truth, so she never mentioned it again. Weeks passed. Her therapist kept trying to counsel her, but the only thing she could think about was whether Isaac was okay. Days blurred together. One day, the therapist came to her room, wondering if she was recovering from the trauma. Rachel said yes, but nothing had changed. The therapist suggested a walk. As they walked through the garden, Rachel remained sad. When the therapist left her alone, she sat quietly on a bench, then stood and walked away. She heard the sound of news, but the radio instantly turned off. The next night, after another therapy session, Rachel looked at the moon and thought it looked exactly like the fake moon in the building's windows. The ugly therapist thought she was really recovering and decided to tell her that Zack had been sentenced to death for his crimes, thinking it would make her feel better. Rachel pretended the news made her feel better and went to her room. That night, she couldn't sleep, just like every night she'd been there, but there was nothing left to do but close her eyes. If you made it this far and want more deep dives into anime that explore the darkest corners of the human psyche, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for Curious Nerd. We break down the most twisted stories, the most unforgettable characters, and everything in between. Thanks for watching.